right, so today we're really diving deep into how to prep for a pricing specialist job interview.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be fun.
And we'll cover what makes this career so interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So to give everyone a bit of background,
Sure.
we're using some really great resources from RoleCatcher.
Love RoleCatcher.
And they have a career guide and an interview guide,
Yeah.
all about pricing specialists.
Yeah, they really lay it all out, don't they?
Yeah, so to kick things off, RoleCatcher says that a pricing specialist is dedicated to optimizing a company's pricing strategy to increase profitability and competitiveness.
Okay. It's not just about, like, picking a number out of thin air.
Right, definitely not.
It's strategic.
Yeah.
It's about finding that perfect price point that works for the business and that works for the customer.
Yeah, and makes everyone happy.
Right.
Exactly. All right, so let's jump right into some of those potential interview questions.
Let's do it.
So question number 1 from RoleCatcher. Can you walk me through your experience with pricing strategies?
Ooh, a classic.
A classic, but a good one. How would someone listening to this deep dive approach that question?
Yeah, so I think the key here is to not just, like, list off a bunch of pricing models, you know, cost plus, value based, all that jazz.
Yeah.
But instead, really tell a story. Pick
Yeah.
1 or 2 really specific examples from your past experience where you actually used these strategies and show how you got results.
So for example?
For, let's say you were working on an e-commerce site.
Yeah.
And you used A/B testing to experiment with different price points.
That was a good one.
You could talk about how you analyzed the data, saw which price point drove the most conversions, and ultimately helped the company increase revenue.
So you're framing it as a pricing strategy.
Exactly.
And not just as like, oh, I did some A/B testing one time.
Yeah, exactly. You're showing them that you understand how to use pricing to achieve specific business goals.
Okay, I love that. Now what about follow-up questions?
Yeah, those are always tricky.
So what if they ask something like, what was the most challenging pricing decision you had to make, and how did you handle it?
Okay, so this one's all about problem solving.
Right.
You want to pick a situation
Right.
where you had to really think critically and balance different priorities.
Okay.
Maybe profitability versus market share.
Yeah.
Or short-term gains versus long-term growth.
Okay. Yeah.
And then explain how you want to gather the data, analyze the options, and made a decision that was in the best interests of the business.
So, is there a way that someone could use RoleCatcher to kind of prepare for that kind of follow-up question?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And their AI is fantastic for this.
Really?
Yeah, you can actually input the job description and the company's profile, and it'll give you insights into what they value most.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can then tailor your answer to highlight the skills and experience that are most relevant to them.
Oh, that's great. So you're not just giving like a generic answer. You're showing them you've done your homework.
Exactly.
You understand their specific needs. All right, let's move on to another question from RoleCatcher. How do you stay up to date on industry pricing trends?
Okay.
So this one, I feel like this is all about showing that you're a lifelong learner, that you're really passionate about this field.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So how would you recommend someone answer that question?
All right, so first of all, don't just rattle off a bunch of industry publications.
Yeah, right.
You know, like everyone's going to say, oh, I read the pricing journal or whatever.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it.
All right, you want to go deeper than that. Talk about like maybe a recent webinar you attended on dynamic pricing.
Interesting.
Or how you analyzed a competitor's pricing change to understand their strategy.
So you're actually actively engaging with the material.
Exactly. You're showing them that you're not just passively consuming information, but you're thinking critically about it and applying it to real-world situations.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about potential follow-up questions here?
Well, they might ask you something like, what's a recent pricing trend that surprised you? And how might it impact this company?
Wow, that's a good one.
Right.
So you really have to be on top of your game.
You do. But it's also a great opportunity to show that you've done your research on the company. And you're thinking about how these trends could affect their business.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, let's tackle another question. How do you balance the need to be competitive with the need to be profitable?
Okay.
This one feels like the eternal struggle.
Right. It's the balancing act of every pricing decision.
Right.
You know, you want to be competitive, attract customers, but you also need to make sure you're making money.
It's a tough one.
It is.
So how do you recommend people approach this?
Yeah. I think a good way to think about it is to use an analogy.
Oh, I love analogies.
So let's say you're running a restaurant.
Okay.
If your prices are too low, you might be packed every night.
Sure.
But you're not making any profit.
Yeah, you're just busy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if your prices are too high, no one's going to come.
Right. You'll have empty tables.
Yeah. So it's about finding that sweet spot, that price point that's attractive to customers.
Yeah.
But also allows you to cover your costs and make a reasonable profit.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, the RoleCatcher Career Guide also mentions that pricing specialists often work closely with both finance and marketing teams.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does that kind of collaboration play into this whole pricing strategy thing?
Well, think about it. You need to be able to justify your pricing decisions to the CFO.
Right.
You know, show them how it's going to impact the bottom line.
Yeah.
But you also need to understand how your pricing is going to affect marketing campaigns, customer perception, the whole brand strategy.
So you're kind of like the bridge between those two worlds.
You got to speak both languages.
Yeah, and I imagine that's not always easy.
It's not always easy,
Right.
but it's what makes this role so interesting and challenging.
Hmm? Yeah, I bet. Okay, so
Yeah.
if someone's in an interview and they get hit with a follow-up question, like really in
Yeah.
Tell me about a time you had to justify a pricing decision that wasn't the most competitive option.
Oh, that's a good one.
How would they approach that?
Yeah, I think the key here is to focus on the long-term benefits.
Okay.
Maybe you had to raise prices
Right.
to ensure the sustainability of the business or
Yeah.
to invest in product improvements.
Hmm.
You know, whatever the reason, you want to explain how you communicated that rationale to stakeholders and highlighted the positive impacts it would have in the long run.
So it's about
Yeah.
looking beyond just the immediate bottom line
Exactly.
and seeing the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right, let's move on to another question from RoleCatcher. How do you determine which pricing model to use for a particular product or service?
Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty.
Right, this is where it can get a little bit technical.
Yeah, but we can still make it fun.
Oh, I hope so.
So, let's say you're working for a software company and you're trying to decide how to price their new cloud-based platform you
Yeah.
could talk about, the different pricing models you considered,
Okay.
like subscription-based, tiered pricing,
Yeah.
usage-based,
Mhm.
and explain why you ultimately chose the one that you did.
So you're giving them concrete examples,
Yeah.
showing them that you actually know how to apply these models
It's
in the real world. Now,
Yeah.
how do you choose the right model? I mean, there are so many options out there.
Right, there are.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it all comes down to understanding the customer and their value perception.
So it's not just about knowing the different models.
Right.
It's about knowing how to apply them
Exactly.
in a way that meets the needs of the business and the needs of the customer.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you know, this is another area
Hmm?
where RoleCatcher's AI can really come in handy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can analyze the company's existing product line, their target market,
Yeah.
their competitive landscape, and suggest pricing models
Yeah.
that are most likely to be successful.
So it's like having a personal pricing consultant
I know.
in your pocket.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, let's tackle one more question for this part.
Sounds good.
How do you measure the success of a pricing strategy?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's about more than just, did we make money?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Right.
It's about looking at a variety of metrics.
Okay.
Did we increase market share?
Mm-hmm.
Did we improve customer lifetime value?
Yeah.
Did we reduce churn? You know, there are so many factors to consider.
So it's about understanding
Mm-hmm.
which metrics are most important to the company.
Exactly.
And then being able to track and analyze those metrics.
And then iterate based on what you learn.
Yeah.
You know, pricing is not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
No, definitely not.
It's an ongoing process of
Right.
testing, measuring, and refining.
Can RoleCatcher's AI help with this at all?
It actually can. Yeah, it can help you identify the key performance indicators or KPIs that are most relevant to this particular role and company.
Interesting.
So you can demonstrate that you understand what success looks like in their eyes.
Okay, that's great. So we've covered 5 key questions so far. Feeling ready to tackle the next
Yeah,
rounds?
bring it on.
All right. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so we left off talking about Measuring the success of a pricing strategy.
Right.
And that actually ties in nicely with the next question from RoleCatcher.
Oh, perfect.
Which is, can you walk me through a time when you had to adjust pricing in response to changes in the market?
Okay, so this one feels like it's really testing your ability to adapt.
Yeah.
Because markets are constantly changing.
Yeah, they are.
And pricing needs to kind of keep pace with that.
Absolutely.
So how would you recommend someone approach this question?
Well, I think the key here is to showcase your analytical skills.
Okay.
Think about a time when a competitor made a major move.
Yeah.
Maybe they slashed their prices
Yeah.
or launched a disruptive new product.
Yeah. That'll definitely shake things up.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you respond? How did you analyze the situation, gather data, and adjust your pricing strategy to maintain your competitive edge?
So it's not just about reacting.
Right.
It's about being proactive.
Exactly.
And making informed decisions.
And I think a good way to structure your answer is to use the STAR method.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Situation, task, action, result.
Yeah.
So you set the scene, describe the challenge you faced, the actions you took, and the outcome you achieved.
So you're really telling a story.
Exactly.
With a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about follow-up questions?
Well, they might ask you something like, okay, what were the key metrics you tracked to evaluate the success of your pricing adjustment?
Okay, so again, it's all about showing that you're data-driven.
Exactly.
That you're not just making decisions based on gut feeling.
You're using data to measure your results and make sure you're on the right track.
Okay, I love that. All right, let's move on to another question. How do you communicate pricing decisions to stakeholders?
Okay, this is a crucial one.
Yeah, because pricing, it touches so many different areas of a business.
It really does.
Right.
You've got executives, sales teams, marketing folks, even customers.
Yeah.
All of whom have different concerns and priorities.
So how do you recommend someone approach this question?
Well, I think the key is to understand your audience and tailor your message accordingly.
So you're saying?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't communicate the same way to the CFO as you would to a salesperson.
Exactly. For the CFO, it's all about the bottom line.
Right.
How is this pricing decision going to impact profitability?
Yeah.
But for a salesperson, they're more concerned with how it's going to affect their ability to close deals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you need to be able to frame your message in a way that resonates with each stakeholder group.
Okay. Now, the RoleCatcher Guide also talks about the importance of clear and concise communication.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are some tips for making sure that your message is getting across effectively?
Well, I think visuals are really helpful.
Okay.
You know, charts, graphs, things like that can really help to illustrate your points.
Does that make it more engaging?
And then don't be afraid to use real-world examples to bring your message to life.
So you're saying, like, instead of just talking about abstract pricing models, you're given a concrete example of how this actually works.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great advice. Now, what about when people push back?
Oh, yeah, that's going to happen.
Because not everyone is going to be on board
right.
with every pricing decision.
Right.
So how do you handle that?
Well, that leads us nicely to the next question from RoleCatcher.
Oh, okay.
Which is, how do you handle pushback from stakeholders on pricing decisions?
Okay, so I'm guessing diplomacy skills are going to be really important here.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be able to listen to their concerns, acknowledge their perspective, and try to find common ground.
So it's not about being defensive.
Right.
It's about being understanding.
Exactly.
And finding a solution that works for everyone.
And I think a good way to approach this is to start by asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
You know, really try to understand where the pushback is coming from.
You dig deeper.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then once you've done that, you can start to use data and logic to explain your rationale. Maybe you can present alternative pricing scenarios or highlight the potential risks of not making a change.
Right.
The key is to be persuasive, but also respectful.
Right.
You want to build consensus, not create conflict.
No. Sometimes, even after all that, a compromise is needed.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you kind of navigate that?
Well, I think it's important to be flexible.
Okay.
You know, maybe you can adjust your pricing slightly or offer additional incentives to address specific concerns.
So it's about finding that middle ground.
Yeah.
Where everyone feels like they're getting something.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. All right, let's move on to another question. How do you balance the needs of different regions or customer segments when developing pricing strategies?
Okay, so this is where market segmentation comes into play.
Right, because
Yeah.
a one-size-fits-all approach
Right?
isn't always going to work.
Exactly. Different customer groups
Yeah,
have different needs and expectations.
yeah.
So you need to understand how those differences might impact their willingness to pay.
So, for example.
Sure, let's say you're selling a product
Yeah.
in both the US and Europe.
Okay.
You might need to adjust your pricing to account for differences in currency exchange rates, taxes, and even cultural norms.
So there's a lot to consider.
There is.
Yeah.
But thankfully,
Well-
RoleCatcher's AI can help with this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can analyze vast amounts of data
Wow.
to identify key differences between customer segments
Interesting.
and suggest pricing strategies that are more likely to resonate with each group.
That's amazing. It's like having a global pricing expert
Yeah,
at your fingertips.
it kind of is.
I love it. All right. Let's tackle the last question from RoleCatcher for this part.
Okay.
How do you ensure pricing compliance across the organization?
Okay, so this is a big one
Yeah.
because it's not just about following the rules.
Right.
It's about understanding the ethical and legal implications of pricing decisions.
And making sure that everyone in the company is on the same page.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
how would you recommend someone approach this question?
Well, I think it's important to talk about the systems and processes you've put in place to ensure compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've developed clear pricing policies and procedures.
Yeah.
Or implemented a training program for employees.
Okay.
Or conducted regular audits to monitor compliance.
So you're really showing them that you take this seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have a plan in place to make sure that the company is operating ethically and legally.
Way.
All right, so
Okay.
we've tackled 10 questions from the RoleCatcher interview guide so far.
Wow, we've been busy.
I know.
But you know what? I think we need to take a step back
Okay.
and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, let's do that.
What does it all really mean? So we've covered a ton of ground.
Yeah.
You know, really dug deep into these interview questions.
Yeah, we really have.
And I think it's been super helpful.
I hope so.
But, you know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not just about memorizing answers.
Right.
It's about understanding the core skills and qualities that make someone successful in this field.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what are those? Core skills and qualities.
Well, let's go back to the RoleCatcher Career Guide.
Okay.
It highlights things like reading comprehension,
Yeah, that makes sense.
judgment, and decision making.
Right, you got to be able to make tough calls.
You do. But it also emphasizes customer and personal service.
Oh, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
it's not just about crunching numbers.
No.
It's about understanding people.
Right? It's about understanding what motivates them, what they value, and how to create a pricing strategy that resonates with their needs.
And in today's world, where prices are constantly changing and information is so readily available, that understanding is more important than ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the guide also mentions some great external resources
Yes.
for people who want to learn more about pricing.
Like the Insights Association and the Professional Pricing Society.
Yeah, those are fantastic organizations.
They offer certifications,
Right.
conferences,
Yeah.
all sorts of great stuff.
So if you're serious about a career in pricing, I highly recommend checking them out.
I second that.
Now, let's talk about RoleCatcher's AI tools.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
they can be incredibly helpful for anyone prepping for a pricing specialist interview.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah.
can you give us some specific examples?
Oh, let's say you're working on your answers to some of those tough interview questions.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's AI can analyze your responses and give you feedback on how to improve them.
So it's like having a personal interview coach.
Exactly.
I love that.
And it can also help you tailor your answers to the specific company and role that you're applying for.
That's amazing.
It's like having a secret weapon in your interview arsenal.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
In the age of death, instant price comparisons, and online marketplaces, how does the role of a pricing specialist evolve?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's something to think about
It is.
because the world of pricing is constantly changing.
It is.
And those who can adapt and embrace new technologies will be the ones who succeed.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so I want to thank everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of pricing.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it helpful, and we wish you the best of luck in your job search.
Good luck, everyone.